So I've got a 2017 Ford Escape here. Just got dropped off. It was actually here 2 or 3 days ago. I did the rear brakes on it. The rear brakes were grinding pretty bad on both sides. And as you can see, that's all been taken care of. And I went ahead and ordered front pads and rotors for this thing. They're going to get done just out of maintenance so that the same thing doesn't happen like the rear did. Anyway, it's here because the check engine light turned on. You guys can probably see it right there. Owner said the car started shaking. This is the first time it's happened. So if we look at our codes here, we got a P0302, misfire on cylinder number 2, misfire on startup, active grill performance, not worried about that. Again, misfire 2. So yeah, the main problem here is cylinder number 2 is misfiring. So let's figure out what's causing this misfire. I got my money on a ignition coil only because it's super common, but you never know. You don't want to just throw parts at the car. So let's see if we have any misfire data on the scanner. When I first started it up, it felt like it was misfiring. I don't think I'm feeling it right now, but let's check the scanner. All right, so I can't find a misfire counter on the scanner here, but I did find a relative compression test built into the scanner here. So let's see if we can do this. I got everything met except for the middle one. It says fully depress the accelerator pedal. Crank the engine for 10 seconds, okay. Okay, so here goes our numbers. Everything looks really good to me, and I don't know if you guys can hear while it was cranking, everything sounded consistent, meaning our misfire is not due to low compression, and the numbers look good here. So I decided to check the power balance, which is kind of similar to a misfire detector. And if we look at this, I'm not seeing anything that stands out. It looks pretty even across the board. It's very intermittent, but if you look at the previous patterns, you see number 1, number 4, and number 3. They don't have any that have really dropped this low. You could see number 2 has. So this is my second time with the hood open. I got the scope out and I was looking at the waveform of each of the ignition cores. You can see we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've already gone ahead and swapped coils over. So the one with the X on it was the suspected bad. This coil was in number 2 originally. I swapped them around. Let me show you what I'm seeing. So when I put the wand right here on coil number 4, that's the signal we get, okay? Let's go over to number 1. There goes the signal right there. And when I go over to number 3, there's that signal. You can see it. They all look consistent, right? And then when you go over to number 2, that one stands out. It looks different. So the car is flagging cylinder number 2 misfire, right? And this coil with the X on it was in cylinder number 2, and when it was over here, I saw that same waveform that looked different from the other 3. So after swapping them around, that waveform that looks weak compared to the other 3 did not follow the ignition coil, because now that number 2 ignition coil is sitting in the number 3 spot, that waveform looks just as consistent as the other ones. Yet on number 2, we still have a waveform that looks a little bit different from the rest. So I got number 2 ignition coil pulled out. I tried pulling out the spark plug and no go. That thing is in there super tight, and it's beyond the point of what I feel comfortable applying pressure to a spark plug. If that thing snaps off, oh, opening up a can of worms, and I don't want to be that person. So I know when to throw in the towel. I'm leaving the spark plug alone. It doesn't want to come out. So I still can't get spark plug number 2 out of here. I mean, that thing is under tight. I feel like I'm going to break something. So I decided to pull out number 3 just so we could have a look at the spark plugs and, you know, just see the condition of them. But number 2 still needs to come out. But man, I'm afraid because, man, this could get nasty real fast if a spark plug breaks inside of here. Here goes the spark plug out of cylinder number 3. You guys can probably see it says Ford right there. So original parts, 100 and, what did I say, 112,000, I think. Right, so doesn't look horrible, but still I cannot get out number 2. Let me keep trying, guys, but I'm like, this thing has got me scared. Yeah, I don't know, guys, it's super sketchy, man. I know better than to be doing this. If it doesn't want to come out, just leave it. But here I am. I don't like this. I don't like this. This thing is scaring me. I'm about ready to call the customer and say, hey, I can't get this spark plug out. Take it somewhere else. Not my problem. Because you break something, you are married to it. Nope, guys, I think I'm gonna throw in the towel. Definitely not worth it. The measly dollars I'll be making off of this job is not worth breaking off a spark plug inside of here. Customer won't be happy. I won't be happy. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Not all money is good money. Know when to stop. Now, I know I said I'm throwing in the towel, guys, but I just hate admitting defeat. I sprayed the heck out of it with some penetrating fluid. The owner's okay with leaving it here for a few hours. So I don't want to force it too much, but I want to see if I could just kind of work it back and forth and hopefully get that penetrating fluid to do something. Let me turn off the camera because I'm just getting anxiety at this point. Alright, so it's about 10 minutes later and I'm really just working it back and forth, and I think as long as the spark plug is not starting to fatigue, it seems like it's moving like just a few millimeters back and forth. So I'm trying to remove it right now. We're going in reverse and I feel a little bit of movement and then it stops, so I'm going to tighten it back up, and I could feel it tightening back up again. So reverse again, and I feel that little bit of movement. So instead of forcing it, I'm just going to keep doing this back and forth, hoping that that penetrating fluid, because at this point I kind of have like a puddle of penetrating fluid around the spark plug, so I'm hoping that with me moving it back and forth, it allows that penetrating fluid to get between the threads. Gotta figure, even if it finally does come out, is it gonna bring the threads with it? You get what I'm saying? Alright, so I've been working it back and forth, and I'm at the point where spark plug basically does a full 360 turn now. But it's still very tough. It gets to a certain point and it just fights you. So just working it back and forth. You could feel when it hits that wall, it doesn't want to turn anymore. So that's when I just go back the other way. Makes you wonder what caused this, right? These spark plugs have never been changed, and it's not like it has 300,000 miles. This thing's at what, 112, I think? So I just finished with another round of penetrating fluid. The engine is pretty much as cool as it can be. It's like a 90-degree day, so the engine can only cool down so much. Basically, anything I touch, nothing is burning me at this point, if that makes any sense. So that's as cool as it's gonna get on a warm day like this. At this point, I probably got the spark plug like easily spinning 2 complete turns. but at a certain point it just fights you again, and you just got to keep working it back and forth. So I've switched over to my 1/2" ratchet only because I get more leverage. At this point I've already established that the spark plug is not going to break, but it's just a matter of getting it out now and hoping that the threads don't come out. And I switched over to the 1/2" ratchet because my hands are absolutely exhausted. My hands, my muscles, everything. So I'd want to say I've been working on this one spark plug for over an hour already. When you're doing stuff like this, it seems like the spark plug is never ending. Like you'd swear the spark plug is a foot long. Just because I have extra leverage doesn't mean I'm going to force it when moving it out. If it gets too tight, I back off and turn it the other way. So don't go crazy with extra leverage. It's just to help me with my fatigue and my arm and hand hurting. And still, of course, plenty of penetrating fluid. I just gave it another spray of penetrating fluid. Seems like I'm at the point where I could just keep threading it out. I don't have to push it back in. So I think we're near the end. Let me switch back over to my 3/8 ratchet. Oh, there it goes. All right. It's out. Let's see what kind of mess we got going on here. I think all the crap we're seeing at the end of the spark plug is just, you know, from it falling in the valley after it came out. That's just stuff that it collected. I don't think all of that crap was inside of the combustion chamber. But if we look at the very first threads, you could see how they're all galled up. That was the issue right there. So I think the smart thing to do here is to run a tap inside of there, clean it up. You don't want to definitely run in the brand new spark plug with, you know, this type of stuff going on inside of there. Honestly, it's not as bad as I was expecting. I think a tap inside of there will clean up the threads nicely. It's just unfortunate to see this stuff. And this is why it's important to do your spark plugs on time, or even before on time, because as you can see, even at 112,000 miles, even though the spark plugs can last that long, do you really want to go that long? Because it causes different problems. You know, it's not just a matter of the spark plugs are worn out or not. So let me see if I can find a tap for this. So I got this cleaned up a little bit better, and it appears that the thread pitch is M12 by 1.25. If we look at the ceramic right at the very tip, that appears to be a crack. Do you guys see it? And that's what could have been causing our misfire. So here goes the spark plug that came out of number 3. So the threads on it are in great condition. And this, I know it's hard for you guys to see, but that says 1.25. And that matches up perfectly with these teeth. And I have a tap here that is also M12 by 1.25, and this is what I would run inside the cylinder head to try to clean up the threads. And also what I would do is pack it real heavy with grease so that any chips that it cuts gets caught in the grease, and you extract it, clean it off, rinse and repeat. It's a slow process, but that's where we are at this point. Okay, so I guess we got to get started. The owner is looking for spark plugs in the stores. My tap isn't exactly long enough to get inside of there, so I'm using some extensions. In order to hold the square end of the tap, I'm using a 12.5/16 socket. I just found it in my toolbox, and it happens to fit pretty nice. And I'm just going to put, like I said, some grease on the threads of the tap. We'll run it in a little bit. Whatever metal it cuts, we'll take it out, clean it off, rinse and repeat until we get all the way through. All right, so it's really important that you get this thing started by hand and make sure it is engaging the proper teeth. You don't want to try to cut something when you're cross threading. You're just gonna have a bad day. It's getting a little tough, but it feels like it has engaged in the threads. So I'm just using a stubby 3/8 ratchet, and I'm not gonna be aggressive with this. Just gonna give it a few turns and then back it off. Now let's take it out and clean off anything that's stuck onto the grease that we put on the tap. So my tap doesn't stay in the socket, it just holds it nicely, but there's nothing, there's like no retention. Okay, so I just grab my magnet and pick up the tap. Now once again, the tap fell in that valley where there's all kinds of crap, so if you disregard all like the chunks of leaves and everything, look past that, we do see like little metal shavings inside of here, and this is what we're cutting inside the cylinder head. So this is why it's important to run the tap in a little bit, back it out, clean it off, rinse and repeat. So let me keep doing this and hopefully I don't run into any issues. So here goes the second pass with the tap, and look how nasty this looks. Look at all that crap the tap is catching. What a disaster. And you know, this is not my fault. I did not do this. This was going to happen either way. It didn't matter who tried to change the spark plugs, whether it was the owner, me, a shop, the dealer, your mom. It doesn't matter who tried to do this. This was going to happen either way because the spark plugs were just seized inside of there. So let me keep working at it, and I'm going to keep up with this process, cleaning it off, reinserting it, and going deeper every time. Run number 3, number 4, and here goes number 5. As you can see, it's very minimal chips on here, almost nothing. What you're really seeing is the grease I put on the tap. The thing is, you got to be careful with this because you could see the length of the threads on this tap is very short, right? And there's nothing retaining the tap to my extensions. It could easily fall out. It's why I'm using a piece of like napkin right here. Let's just say if you run in this tap too far and you go past the threads of the head, it is possible for your entire tap to fall inside the combustion chamber. At that point, you're pretty much screwed. So be super careful with this thing. All right, so I'm done with the whole tap thing. I took it as far as I want to. I'm just gonna play it safe. I can't risk the tap falling inside the cylinder. So the owner just dropped off a 4-pack of brand new Ford OEM spark plugs. So I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to screw it in and just do it slowly and get a good feel for it and make sure that it completely bottoms out on the seat that it's supposed to bottom out on, and cross our fingers. So I decided to put copper anti-seize on the threads of the spark plug. I don't normally do this, but I think this is a special occasion that does warrant using this stuff. This is the same stuff that comes with oxygen sensors to put on the threads when you're inserting those things. So like I said, I don't normally do this for spark plugs, but yeah, we don't want these threads to get galled up again. So let's go ahead and insert this. All right, so spark plug number 2 went in all the way, bottomed out, and it even torqued down. No issues at all. Super happy with that. I went ahead and installed spark plug number 3, and now let's pull out the coils for 1 and 4, and hopefully those spark plugs come out. If they don't come out, I swear I'm not touching them. If any one of them puts up a fight, I'm done, because we came here to fix a problem on number 2, and as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be fixed. All right guys, so everything is pretty much done. Everything is reassembled. The 3 other spark plugs went perfectly, no issues at all compared to number 2. So let's go ahead, start her up. The key should be inside of here. Okay, I'm going to let it idle and stabilize. So I've been driving the Escape around for about 15-20 minutes and it has not skipped a beat. I can't feel any misfires, no check engine light, anything. It's running and idling perfectly normal. And to me, it even feels like it has a little bit more giddy up, right? Like it has a bit more power from the new spark plugs. So let's go ahead and do a wide open throttle, and hopefully the boost of this bad boy doesn't blow the spark plugs out the cylinder head. All right, that's enough. Settle down. You guys know I don't go racing in customers' cars. It's just something I need to test. But yeah, it's been running flawlessly. This is one of those jobs where it's risk versus reward, right? When to throw in the towel, and guys, I was really just, I wasn't feeling it. I was ready to stop and call the owner, but he understood the circumstances. Luckily, he was really cool and understanding, and that's why I was willing to go forward with it. But you got to make sure you let the customer know, hey, there is a very high chance that this whole thing could go sideways. And when it does, I don't want to be held accountable for or responsible for this, because it's one of those I told you so. And like I said earlier in the video, something like this, it just happens. It doesn't matter who's trying to change the spark plug. It doesn't matter. Anyone. It'll happen to you, okay? So I'm glad it got fixed at the end of the day, and it's running nice and smooth. So I got this Ford Escape back in the garage. It's about a week later, and it came back to do the front brakes. As you can see, it's got new pads and rotors up front. Just took it out for a test drive. Brakes feel great. Everything sounds great. And to touch base on the misfire, it's been over a week. Customers had 0 complaints. He said no misfires, no check engine light, nothing. And I just test drove it, of course, for doing the brakes, and the car runs perfectly. So yep, bad spark plug. That's crazy. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and like always, thanks for watching.